Hey, welcome to the Lead Well podcast. This is Stephen Owens, your host here. Thanks so much for tuning into the podcast. We have a great episode for you today. We have Dr. Alisa Henley on the podcast today, and it's going to be a blessing for us. But before we jump into the podcast, if you're new here to the podcast, I just want to give you a little information about who we are and what we do. What we do here at the Lead Well podcast is talk to leaders from around the world to get the leadership insight and wisdom so that we can become better leaders for the glory of Jesus Christ. And listen, if you want to stay in contact with us, stay connected with us, I encourage you to go over to my website, stephenowens.org, and sign up for the Lead Well newsletter, and so you can stay connected with us, as well as you'll receive a free download ebook that I wrote entitled Rescuing Ambition. And then finally, if you've been encouraged by the podcast and you want to encourage other leaders, I would encourage you to connect with me and connect with us here at the Lead Well podcast and be a partner with us so that we can encourage more leaders around the world to become more effective for the glory of Jesus. All right, thanks so much. And let's get into this podcast. All right, see you soon. Hey, how are you there, Dr. Alisa J? Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me, and I'm doing well.
Awesome. And so I'm excited to have you on the podcast, on the Lead Well podcast. I know you're an author, you're a speaker, entrepreneur. Destiny Consulting, right, is your organization, as long as the Sunshine organization. Man, you got a lot going on. How do you get time to sleep?
Well, believe it or not, I do sleep, but the good thing is that all of them are related. So Destiny Consulting is my for-profit business where I offer human resources and organizational development consulting to governmental and non-governmental agencies. And then the Sunshine organization is my heart work. That's where I work with churches in the area of leadership, strategic planning, things of that nature, just making sure that they are healthy organizations, that they're healthy ministries. And then, of course, I write books and recently finished with my PhD. And so I get to travel domestically and internationally speaking, helping people to ignite their vision. So I do get some sleep, though, but I only work April through October.
Oh, okay. All right. And then you get to sleep on those planes, too. So that's helpful, right?
Sometimes. It depends. It depends.
Gotcha. And so we met at the Black Church Leadership and Family Conference at Ridgecrest. So why do you believe that leadership is important?
Well, I think we have to look back at how leadership began, right back in the 1800s, the first leadership theory. Leadership is important in faith-based and non-faith-based organization because how can you develop other people? I believe that God created us all to develop other people. And if we don't know how to lead and to follow, how can we develop someone else? And he created us to be an example. And so we have to have an example to follow. We have to be that example so that we can create examples so that they can create examples, kind of like a discipleship thing. So Jesus was a great leader. You know, there are great worldly leaders as well. But leadership is, I believe, imperative and necessary in any organization and in life, in running your home and working in, running your church and working in a leadership position in a church. It crosses all boundaries and all levels of life. That's why I think it's important.
That's awesome. So when you work with the leaders as you do your consulting, and even when the Sunshine organization, what do you see some of the biggest hurdles with them? Do you see some common hurdles despite the organization that they may be in, for-profit or nonprofit, or are there different issues that each one face?
I think that there are some commonalities in the challenges that they face in leadership. One, a lot of people are not really groomed to be leaders. And when we think about some of the original leadership theories, the great man theory felt like people, you had to be born to be a leader. Then they come out with all of these other theories that say that you can teach common characteristics and leadership traits, in which I believe that you can. But what I find is that people don't really take time to develop their leadership skills. And there are three types of leadership. There is the autocratic, the democratic, and the laissez-faire leader. And I think that most people in organizations fall into the autocratic. Do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it, because they're always lagging behind. And when you think about the reasons for leadership and why it was implemented, you have the strategic leader. And the strategic leader is responsible for casting the overall vision of the organization. Then you have the tactical leader, and the tactical leader is responsible for making sure that all of the resources are in place to be able to fulfill or carry out the vision that the strategic leader have. And then you have the operational leader. That's the person that leads the small groups of people to get the work done. What I find that's common in faith-based and non-faith-based organizations is that tactical leaders have become almost extinct. They just really don't exist anymore. And so then you have the strategic leader painting this picture, this glorious picture that they want to accomplish, but there's nobody put in place to make sure that the resources are there to be able to fulfill whatever that strategic vision is. You have the workers, but you don't have the tactical piece. And I feel that that is the common thing that happens in faith-based and non-faith-based organizations. We forgot about that element of leadership.
Oh, that's real good. So even as I was thinking about what you were saying, so it reminds me of the strategic leader being the entrepreneur, and then the tactical leader being the manager. Like there's a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs. They have this great vision, they have this great passion, but how to put that thing into place, the tactical, practical things of management in order for an organization to be able to grow is, I think, sometimes missing. Does that sound somewhat what you're communicating?
I don't think I could have said it any better. So here's what happens. Here's what I believe happens from my experience, and because I've been a full-time business owner since 2004. This is 2019, so I've been in the game a little while. What happens is we have passion, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have passion to go out and teach leadership skills. I have passion to do organizational development work. I have passion to help people develop strategic plans. That's my passion. Now, the good thing about me is that I also have that administrative piece, because but most people do not have that administrative piece. And so what happens is we jump out both feet first into our passion and into our vision without really thinking about the pieces that need to be put in place to develop a great foundation. Now, I was blessed early on in me becoming an entrepreneur. I was really blessed because I entered into a program here in the Kansas City area called the Herman A. Johnson Mentoring Program. And my mentor told me, it brought tears to my eyes, but my mentor told me, you need to mature as a business owner, or else you're not going to be successful. Now, granted, I was fairly young, about 30 years old when I stepped out, and 30, 31 when I stepped out to start my business. And so when he said that to me, my first thought was, you don't even know me really. But he was listening to what I said, and he was listening to how I had corresponding action, and he determined this young lady is not mature as a business owner. And now, 14 years later, 15 years later, I guess almost, I have kept that in mind, and I always center my decisions around that. So that's exactly right. We step out on our passion, but God doesn't develop passion, right? He develops vision and
Mm.
planning and all of that. And so, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I could not have said it better. We step out on our passion, but we don't we just want to do this. God said for me to do this. My skill set said I can do this, and we begin to do it. But then as we begin to live the vision, it grows and it grows and it grows. And we haven't done the foundational things to make sure that it can be sustainable and that we make money at
Amen,
doing
sister.
it.
Amen. Amen. So let's dig a little bit more into the tactical leader then, okay?
Okay.
Because seeing that's how a lot of areas that a lot of people need to grow in, even myself, the importance of the day-to-day management, the tactical skills are important. So what do you think are some of the some practical ways to help develop leaders in that area?
Well, first off, I think you need to know that is a missing element.
Mm.
And I see this more prevalent in faith-based organizations or nonprofit because they're not really looking to make all of this money. So what happens is, and I'm not picking on the church. I'm a church girl. I'm not picking on the church, but I
It's
work
all
a
right,
lot with
sister. We
churches.
family. Come on, bring it.
So what happens is, and we'll just take the pastor, for example, he paints the vision. God told us to build this new edifice, or God told us to implement this new program, or God told us this, or God told us that. Well, the operational people just began to do it because who said it? The pastor said it. But the leader has to first recognize that this tactical piece is necessary. And it's not about just do this because I'm the pastor, God gave me the vision, or I'm the leader, I have the vision, do what I say. You have to consider some other things. And so the first step is just recognizing that this is needed. It's necessary to have in your organization, no matter if it's a for-profit, a non-for-profit, or faith-based, or if you just fulfilling your hobby, it's necessary to have. The second practical thing that I think people can do is just do a little bit of research on what does it take to be a tactical leader. What is the job description of a tactical leader? Most people don't know. And the best way to study that and how I learned about it is looking at how the military does things.
Oh, that's good. Go deeper into that.
Yeah. So the military, and now don't quote me on these military terms. I went to
Oh, no
military
worries.
high school, but lieutenant,
Mhm.
colonel, and all that stuff. But when you think about the military, I think, still holds true to the leadership format, the leadership hierarchy. They don't ever change from that. And the military, in my opinion, is highly successful, right?
Mhm.
They are sustained. They have the resources that they need, and so you have the people that are making the decisions. So you have the colonel or the lieutenant or the sergeant, whichever one is the highest, and they're there. They're making the decisions. They're planning the attack. And then you have the tactical person that comes in and they say, okay, this is the attack. This is what we want to do. However, we need to come up with a strategy. So think of your tactical person as a strategist, right?
Gotcha.
So okay, we're going to need 100 soldiers. We're going to need 15 platoon leaders. We're going to need, 55 rifles. We're going to need this, we're going to need that. And so that tactical person or that strategist comes in and they help formulate, put on paper all of the things that are needed to be able to carry out whatever that mission is. And then they go out and they get these platoons, right? And they train these platoons, these people or the operational people, they train them to be able to carry out whatever the attack is or engage in the battle. And so when you think about how the military is set up, they are the prime example of the strategic leader, the tactical leader, and the operational leader, in my opinion.
Gotcha. No, that's very helpful. So understanding there should be some clarity of roles and goals inside of an
Absolutely.
organization, so people can know what to do and who's doing what, right?
Absolutely.
And so, can you talk a little bit about? I know you mentioned a little bit about your journey in a mentoring program, but can you tell us a little bit more about your leadership journey and how it began to develop for you?
Oh my God, I was a horrible leader because my leadership journey started when I graduated college. I got a human, my background is in human resources. And so I got a human resources management job working for two hotels.
Mm.
And I made some really, really bad decisions. For example, one of the decisions that I made is I was rolling out a new handbook for the associates. And everything in the hospitality is about production. I called all of the production people off the floor so that they can get their new handbook and sign off on this paper. But I didn't work with the manager to do that. And they had several events coming up. And I just said, you need to be in the HR office at this time, blah, blah, blah. The manager comes back and he's like, where are my people? Oh, they had to go to HR. Lisa called them to HR. That man came down and he went up one side of me and down the other.
Got you.
I mean, not in a good way.
I
And
understand.
I could not figure out, why is this man talking to me so rough? I went to my director and my director asked me, do you understand what you did wrong? And I said, no, I don't. I was tasked to rolling this handbook out. I came up with a plan. He said, you never went and talked to him. Your decision impacted his entire staff, his entire area.
Wow.
You should have partnered with him and worked with him to make that happen. Maybe he would have released 10 people at a time. He could not afford to have all of his people off the floor at the same time.
That's good.
And so I went in and I apologized to him after my director explained to me what I did wrong. And so my leadership journey started in my 20s, and it had just began to develop from there, because I've always, from the time I graduated college, I've always been in some type of leadership role, even leading people that probably had more experience than I had, or were older than me, or from a different generation, or things of that nature. And so I worked several jobs, governmental and non-governmental, in public sector and private sector. And I tried to make sure that I kept every experience in view that I had. I tried to make sure that I listened to every piece of advice someone gave me. For example, one lady gave me some advice. She said, Alisa, when you decide something is over, you slam the door, but you need to make sure that you always leave a crack in the door to give somebody an opportunity to gracefully bow out. And so I applied, and I've been blessed to be around some great leaders and to teach me some great things and to read some great books, right? So when I stepped out and became a business owner, and then, that takes leadership to a whole nother level. Because now, when I first stepped out, I didn't have anybody directly reporting to me. I didn't have that concern anymore. However, I had to realize that every client that I work with, I was leading them. They were a subordinate to me because they were paying me for my expertise. That's good. So I had to develop in that leadership arena as well. So now I got to look at things like the strategic leader and the democratic leader, or the autocratic leader, or the tactical leader. I had to learn about the leadership theories, because now I am responsible for imparting that knowledge into other people based on my experience to make their leadership journey just a little easier. And so my leadership journey, it crosses all paths, even in church. Ever since I've been in church as an adult, since probably about 26 or 27, I've held a leadership role in some capacity. And, it's different leading church folk, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
you should know.
Yes, ma'am.
So I've always had some type of leadership role. And to be honest with you, I've taken things that I've learned in private sector and public sector and from people, and I applied that to my leadership in the church as well. Because I think what happens in church is that we think that those practical leadership things don't apply because we're just charged with following God. And I get that. But everybody that Jesus called, they had a skill set.
Come on, that's good. That's good.
They had a skill set. So yeah, in my leadership role, what I learned in private sector also crosses the boundary to faith-based, because what is doing is leadership is the same no matter what your environment is, because leadership starts with you. It's within you and how you handle things. And I don't have to handle my leadership differently when I'm working with a non-faith-based client versus when I work with a faith-based client, because the principles are the same.
That's good.
They are the same. Now I might add a Bible verse in it if I'm working with the church.
Come on, you got to contextualize, right?
Yeah, but the principle is the same. And I think that that's what we have to realize. If I'm running my home, I don't have any children, but I have a home. If I'm running my home, that same leadership principle applies that I use at work or in business or at church. It still applies in my home. because the principle does not change. And if you apply the leadership principles, they will work for you.
Yeah, that's good. So I really appreciate you telling a story about you being in HR and in the hotel, because I think a lot of times, even in church or in for-profit businesses, that's a piece that we really miss, right? So that communication piece cross laterally, right? And not just up and down, but you need to be talking to the other managers to making
Right.
and other team leaders to making sure that, you're not doing anything that's going to affect their ministry or department. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit now about what are some of the things that you see that are good tools, helps, like some books that that you read. Now, one thing that I really want to help in our community, our leadership community, is to encourage people to to grab books, to read them, so they can be able to grow in their leadership. Got any practical books? Please tell us about yours now. Come on.
Okay. So I'll start with mine first, right? Okay. So I've had the pleasure of writing books, and believe it or not, I have not written a leadership book yet. That's going to be coming out next year in 2020, and it's going to be talking about authentic leadership in the church. And the reason why I chose that subject is because I've recently finished with my PhD. I did my dissertation on the relationship between trustworthiness and authentic leadership. And I measured it by the 4 subscales of authentic leadership as well. And so I found out that there was a correlation between that. And I serve on several boards. So I served on the Blue River Baptist Association board. So what I did is I used lay members from 8 different churches to get my sample, and I had them take 2 surveys, one geared toward authentic leadership and the other to measure their trustworthiness. And I did a quantitative study, but I'm interested in doing a qualitative study on that same subject. So the other books that I've written were books to help people ignite their vision.
That's good.
One of my latest book that I wrote in 2017 is called Find It, Follow It, Finish It, 12 Mindset Shifts to Ignite Your Vision. And then I also wrote a book called Catch the Vision, Stay the Course. Because what I find a lot in some communities, we don't talk enough about vision. And if you are going to be a leader, you have to have vision. You have to be able to ignite your vision. So even though those books are not about leadership, they still can help you in your leadership journey.
Very much so.
So if you like to read, I have several things. One, if you like to read, there are some bigger books that I recommend.
Shoot them on out to us.
If you don't like to read, I got some smaller ones as well.
Okay.
The one book that I'm reading, and I actually have it right here, is called Grow Your Own Leaders. I recommend anything by John Maxwell. I love all of his books. But there are 2 small books that I read as well. One of them is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Patrick Lencioni?
Yes, okay. Yes, I love that book.
Yes.
The other book that I have are a small book, and I may not have the title quite right, okay, but I think it's like the 9 Principles of a Leader.
Okay.
It's a very, very, very easy read. You probably can read it in an hour. Both of those, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, as well as this book, you probably can read in about an hour. And it have a black and gold cover. And I think it's 9 Traits of a Leader or 9 Principles of a Leader or something like that. Those are books that I recommend too. If you are not really a reader, you just want to read it and get it over with, then some other books, if you love to read, like I like to read, that you can stick with. There are a number of leadership books out there. I like a lot of Miles Monroe. I still read his books on leaderships and things of that nature. But anything by John Maxwell, How to Grow Your Own Leader is a good book as well. I could just go on and on and on and on about books, but but there are a lot of resources out there for you. Okay. And a lot of times you don't even have to buy a book. You can just go on Google and type in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and get enough information to educate yourself on what those dysfunctions are.
Amen. That's good stuff. All right. So any last advice you want to give to aspiring leaders or leaders? Yeah, let's focus on some aspiring leaders, because that doesn't matter your age, right, or demographic. You can be starting in your leadership journey at 50 years old. So you got any advice for any aspiring leaders?
Absolutely, I do. I'm never without advice or words. When it comes to aspiring to be a leader, regardless if you served in some capacity or not before, my advice is educate yourself on the theory of leadership and find out exactly where you fit in, because every leader, they bring a unique subset of their skills to the table. Every leader may not be a situational leader. Every leader may not be a transformative leader. Every leader may not be an autocratic leader. So you have to take a true assessment of your leadership capability and what you bring to the table and find out where you fit in. If you are afraid to handle conflict, then you're probably not a situational leader. You're probably more of a laissez-faire leader. In some cases, all forms of leadership is necessary, because no one form of leadership fit every situation or every leadership environment. It just does not. So you need to find out where you are as a leader and be honest with yourself. So, and some people are leading and they just not designed or equipped to lead.
Amen.
They shouldn't
Amen,
be
sister.
leading. So you have to take an honest assessment of yourself and the role that you would like to play in leadership, and if you have the skill set to do that. And if you don't have the skill set, am I able to develop that skill set in a reasonable period of time? The reality of it is, I've been in the workforce now since out of college. So I don't know, I'm 48 now, so it's maybe 22, 23. I've been in the workforce for quite a while, and I have become a better leader over the years. I didn't step out. I didn't step out having everything that I needed to be a leader, and I'm still learning, because leadership is constantly evolving. And I think that that's something that you have to own as an aspiring leader, knowing that where you start today is not, if you truly are called to be a leader, is not where you're going to end up 15 years from now. And leading is constantly learning. Every day that you're on earth, there is a learning opportunity for you and a development opportunity for you. So don't ever get to the place where you feel like I have aspired to this great leader, because you haven't. Because, authentic leadership is one of the newest leadership theories, but believe me, they're going to be coming out with some more.
Right. That's
as,
good
as, lo-
stuff.
as, as long as the earth remains,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be something else. And so I just advise you to take a true assessment of your leadership capability, determine where you fit in and what skills you need to develop before taking on additional leadership responsibility.
Well, Dr. Alisa J, thank you so much for coming on the Lead Well podcast. Really appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule to come and check us out. So how can people reach you? Do they have a way to be able to follow you on social media or your
Yeah,
website?
yeah. All of my social media is Dr. Alisa J.
Okay.
That's my website. That's my Facebook. That's my Instagram, as well as my LinkedIn. Is Dr. Alisa J. And you can always email me. It's just Alisa, Alisa, at dralisaj.com. That's Alisa, Alisa, at Dr. Alisa, Alisa, J, the letter J.com. You can
Awesome.
always reach me via email or any one of those social media sites.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. You're going to have to definitely get you back onto the Lead Well podcast. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I will be glad to be back. I like to talk.
Amen. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Hey, I hope you were encouraged by that interview with Dr. Alisa J. I know I was encouraged by her insight. Hey, listen, if you want to stay connected with us, I would encourage you to connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. And remember now, go over to stephenowens.org and sign up for the newsletter, so that way you'll be able to get updates when we send out new podcasts, as well as now you receive that free ebook, Rescuing Ambition. And listen, if you're looking for a leadership coach, I would love to be your coach, and I'd love to talk with you and see how we can work together so that we can help develop the gift of leadership that God has within you. All right, well, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. And remember, leaders must lead well. God bless. Bye now.